I've scrubbed through that space, and it was a pacifier. The angle that was taken in that particular X space, first of all, we did not have our most eloquent voices doing the questioning, which set us one at a disadvantage. And this is the thing where if we claim we are a leaderless movement, we also cannot delegate media to an individual. That's where I also feel like it's a realization that we are also having, because the movement is still very young. And I'm not here to fault anyone, but in terms of articulation of our points, we should have focused more on whatever it is that the president had talked about earlier, which when I was saying it's a radical position, I'll take by saying that he's making knee-jerk reactions. If we really, really crystallize what our issues are around and the things that the president is supposed to be dealing with, we have issues around food, we have issues around education,
right.
We have issues around work, meaningful work, and we have issues around health. If they sort out these things because they delve into the other microcosm, you cannot tell us that you have jobs, and when you filter the jobs that we're getting, they're jobs as domestic workers, taking us back to the years of slavery. We do not want passports, we want IDs, because that's the next thing we are going to agitate for. Because seeing as they've decided to play politics, then now we will push that you give us IDs. Because if you look at it, if you look at these moves, it will be very hard for people to get IDs, because we've realized that we can form an entire government without touching any of the voters who vote tribally. We want more tangible solutions, and him coming to the X space, and because the X spaces have been a place for us to vent, I look at them as the places we go to rant collectively as citizens as we crystallize our main ideas. The president coming to be a part of that put us at a slight disadvantage, because he does not have the same complaints we have. So he's bringing authority to a place where we've claimed leaderlessness, tribelessness, and fearlessness. So when he comes in as an authority and not as a listening voice, because it would have been a different thing if he joined a space, if a space was being hosted and then you saw William S. Ruto has joined the space. That would have been a totally different thing. The way the politicians have been addressed in those spaces have been very different, because once the president comes, as much as we might have issues with the man, the presidency is a separate thing, and now there becomes respectability politics and all those things. I would say, and at the risk of sounding like an ungrateful person, the space that the president hosted has absolutely no effect. If it has done anything, it has sown seeds of discord amongst the young voices, although very lightly, because again, the movement still stays whether or not we have a person. But whatever he did, if it was just done constitutionally, if he was coming to the spaces for vibes, that would have been good. But I don't see anything meaningful that he addressed, because we still have killer cops walking around. We still have lives that were lost. We've not seen the state act accordingly. These are part of the things that if he showed goodwill, he would have done. Yes, he said he would reconstitute the IABC by Tuesday, but that is a thing which he should do whether or not he was on the space. We should have seen the state cater for families, for the people who've been permanently disfigured, and apply the constitution. So to me, the space is entirely void.
Okay, let's listen into part of that conversation with President William Ruto.
And it is something that I am going to exercise my mind on, because the police have clear rules of how to arrest citizens if they have to arrest citizens. There is a clearly stipulated procedure on how that is done. And if anything is done outside the procedure, then it is illegal and it is punishable. So when the police arrest somebody, they must declare to that person that they are policemen, they are arresting this person for this and that and that and that, and they take him to a place that is known. So that is a matter that I will take up, and I will deal with it.
That is President William Ruto on the arbitrary abductions witnessed in the run-up to those what Kasmil now says we should not term as anti-government protests, but pro-good governance protests. So I want to come back to you still, Kasmil, because you were allegedly abducted. Many still do not believe it.
Right.
But, you know, hearing what the president said, is that how your arrest happened? Did your abductors or arresters identify themselves, as President William Ruto says?
No. But yet again, did the people who shot at us identify themselves? Because now we are shedding light. If we are going to hold people accountable, we will hold this government, because we have seen, and I even have videos from the most recent demonstrations, where people are in shades, they're in balaclavas, and no identification whatsoever, wielding high-profile weapons. So during this whole protest, and that's why I'm saying it is a diversionary tactic by the government. We've even seen people on the streets wearing a different country's military fatigue launched onto protesters. That's why I keep on saying, absolutely, we want order even in the police force, because we cannot have them kill us, one, and then the president says that he acknowledges there is a rot in the police force, as if he is not the commander-in-chief.
Just speak to us about the impact of the X space. Kasmil says it may have had no impact because these are political gimmicks, as he says.
Allow me also to make very few comments on the X space, because I'm not an X space user. But I feel like, and I say this at the risk as well of sounding like a government sympathizer, but I say this radically. This is a step in the right direction. I do not really know what much he talked about, but listening to the state briefing and the austerity measures that he said before, and that we might talk about in a few, I do not want to dismiss everything that he says. But even from my point of view, as a person who's not on X space, I do not think that that was a lot, considering there was a lot of technical hitches and what have you. But at least he gets to know that he gets to come to the X space. And if he coming to hosted spaces that we have hosted will make a better impact for us, then I feel that's a message that it should, be said on such a panel. And I feel like it should get to him.
Jennifer, so President William Ruto made that decision to address the media or address the nation before the X-Space conversation, announcing a raft of austerity measures aimed at cutting government spending. How did you take that? Because it seemed like an olive branch, so to speak, or a white flag before coming for the X-Space. Are you satisfied, at least, that we are moving in the right direction with the austerity measures that had been announced, including cutting spending or scrapping budgets for the Office of the First Lady, Second Lady, spouse of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, all of which were getting budgets?
So for a start, I do not understand why he held a press conference, then came and told us the same issues on space. So what was the point of, and whatever he did, he's not now changing the world. These are things we've complained about. We raised the issues, it was in the budget, and we already fought the bill, and that's over. So we are telling the president, we're actually seeing the impact, and this is why I was saying the complaints are working, as she called them, the complaints, which we are saying it's not, we don't want to put a name as complaint to them, because these are real issues that are affecting Kenyans. And him doing that doesn't make him now, Ruto is listening to us. No, it means the advisors that you have, it's time to drop them, because now you're exposed. Your government's planning is rug. We do not, you have no plan for this nation. So the fact that he actually held a press conference before the Twitter space, it's giving very manipulative of, okay guys, so I've cut 50, now we can come on space and now tell the youth, okay, you see, I'm doing what you want. No, my dear, you're not doing what we want. This is something you should have done.
We raised flowers in demonstrations. We raised handkerchiefs, and we still got shot at.
All right, and so that's the feeling of the ground, that this needed not wait for the revolt by Gen Z. But do you feel a sense of pride, Kasmil, as among those who have been at the front line of championing for good governance, that these things that should have been done but were not done are now being done as a result of the pressure sustained by the movement?
The only thing I'm proud about in this whole thing is the unity of the youth. I do not have pride that a government will wait for its youth to get on the streets for us to get accountability. That a government will wait for media to run a story in the way that they do not approve of, for them to now call in and say, this is what we have been doing, these are the effective measures we have been putting. The only pride I have is in the way the flag has been used recently. The flag has been used to bury patriots. The flag has been used to remind us that with a common shared purpose of prosperity of the country, of eradicating hunger, of unity, of eradicating tribalism, we will work together. I do not have pride in the fact that we've had to lose lives, because that's another thing which we are forgetting, and the thing that pains me the most. We've had to lose lives, we've had to have people maimed for the government to listen. This government should have listened when people were on the streets generations before us, because now they're making it look like we are the first generation to protest bad governance. But remember, even in this previous regime, bodies showed up in rivers. In this previous regime, we lost babies. In this previous regime, people used to be abducted. Now we've brought light onto these things, and we are saying as a citizenry that we are going to be absolutely vigilant because of these things. Because what the state goes ahead to do is show that, hey, listen, because now once we started talking about these abductions and taking them seriously, what happens? A senior official who used to be a parliamentarian now gets abducted on the streets in front of the family, and then they come to clear the name and say this was not an abduction, this was an arrest. So for everything we complain about, they show up with a measure to show us that, hey, listen, this is actually how we usually do it. But there's still way more that can be done with regards to these things.
I mean to say, over and above the austerity measures, corruption is the elephant in the room, and so we'll be discussing that in just a bit. But some of those austerity measures included scrapping the position of CASs, merging and scrapping off some parastatals. I mean, look at places like the Industrial and Commercial Development Corporation and the Industrial Development Bank, and then we have the Tourism Trust Fund. All of them have the core mandate of lending to the private sector, and so then those overlapping mandates add up to a lot of wastage of public resources. But Josephine, at the front page of the Daily Nation, there's a report that says job reprieve for junior school teachers and intern doctors as the government now moves to safeguard the absorption of JSS teachers and medical interns despite the withdrawal of the finance bill of 2024. And remember, after the bill was withdrawn, the conversation was, listen, you guys said we withdraw the bill, so here are the consequences you're going to face. We're going to remove the school feeding program. But there's been sustained pressure. Kenyans said, no, you have to reprioritize and look at your priorities differently. And so hiring of doctors will go on, JSS tutors will be absorbed. This is a result of this pressure, this call for good governance. What are your thoughts on this?
Honestly, I wouldn't understand why, when you retrieve the finance bill, the first thing you would do is attack people and say, you know what, you don't want the finance bill, you won't get money in your pockets. You know, that was a very bad move, you know. And honestly, to be honest, let me first talk about the intern doctors. The CBA was implemented in 2017 that said that the intern doctors will be paid 206,000 Kenya shillings in monthly salary gross. That has been implemented even in the previous financial year, not this one, but the other one in Uhuru Ruto's government. That was implemented. I do not understand though why this year, with continuing increased tax increments, they would say now there's no money for doctors when there has been money for doctors. So this, well, I feel like truly this is a PR stunt by saying now we're going to go and we're going to. That's truly, now I concur with my colleagues, that's what should have been happening. You've trained these teachers, you've trained these doctors. And funny thing, the University of Nairobi and the KUCCPS, KUSPS, only allows for 100 KUCCPS doctors every year. But the University of Nairobi this year, they will graduate 400, which 300 are parallel students, meaning that they have used money for parallel students so that they can fund the school, and now they're like, okay, now they're all graduated. They thought they'll drop out. Now what do we do now? 400, an astounding 400, which is a step in the right direction, are now graduating, and they require internships. The previous year, the ones who graduated in December have not yet been posted. These ones are graduating this December. They need to be posted in order to get their license. There's a huge backlog. I do not feel like this is something that he should come with and say, okay, now I'm doing it. You know, I'm doing the work. Intern doctors, JSS teachers, they should have been a priority in the first place. So it is a step
in the right direction, especially for service delivery in those two sectors of health and education. But let's listen in very briefly before I come to you, Jennifer, on President William Ruto during that X-Space conversation discussing the hiring of doctors and interns.
Intern doctors. There was a long conversation with intern doctors. I made sure that they were attended to. I met the leadership of the intern doctors myself, finally, and we did make an agreement on how to sort out the intern doctor situation, including I have factored in this budget with their concurrence. When I agreed with them, we were supposed to sort out their arrears in 3 years. I offered to sort them out in 1 year. after I engaged with them, and the money is in the budget. As I talk to you, I have even today decided that even with a cut of the finance bill, I will still make sure that they are sorted out. The issue of pending bills, you know, my good brother, we have pending bills in the region of 650 billion. It is the reason.
Right. So, Jennifer, that's, again, many say it's a step in the right direction, but the President says he has offered to do it in under 1 year. As we begin to wind up, when you look at the pros and cons, the progress that has been made, what overall for you stands out as part of the gains of this movement, reading both from the X-Space conversation and that press address by the President on those austerity measures?
So, Michelle, for me, I actually don't think we are there yet. There is no gain yet. Actually, just listening to the President speak and saying he's offering these opportunities after we've had doctors go on strike and these interns for 3 months, and he did nothing at that time. You know, when we were on Twitter complaining, why are you having CASs? Those positions are irrelevant. It's now that he's listening to us, now it's actually getting to him. This is the only positive part about it, that finally I feel like he's actually listening, because you can see he's trying to give these actions, but we do not believe, because these are not issues that are being raised today. They've been raised before. We've seen people go to the streets for these issues and you ignored them at that time. So what is it about you that is changing right now? That now for some reason you want to give the 400 doctors internship, you know? And what is the difference? At that time, if you couldn't offer, what are these measures that you're coming up right now with that you couldn't have done then? This is why you don't even trust whatever he's planning for them, because probably they're going to borrow another trillion to come and work this round and then leave us in debt. By the time he leaves the government, he's going to have already, I can't use the F word, but yeah, he would have done that to us already. So I have zero trust with whatever he's saying, because I do not believe he's saying this at this time. It's too late, Mr. President. It's late that you're giving internships when they were in the streets for a whole 3 months, telling you to listen to them. When we told you these positions you're creating in your government, we cannot sustain them. So by you telling us, oh, we are going to have CSS go home, we're not going to, it's actually, you're not doing us a favor. It's unconstitutional to have those offices. So stop telling us as if you're doing us a good thing. You should do the right thing, which is do not have CSS. These are unconstitutional offices. That is the right thing to be done from the word go, not now that the youths have raised the voices and they're telling you, no, we are done with your
I'd like us to begin winding up, but many say then the issue of corruption is what Kenyans will focus on next. Wheels are rolling for the constitution of the IEBC, at least in Parliament when the National Assembly resumes. But Josephine, as we begin to wind up, the big conversation this week is what's making headlines on the front page of the Standard newspaper: to fire or keep, Ruto's cabinet dilemma. What are your expectations in the wake of the sustained pressure by Gen Z, the austerity measures that have been put together, but many say they're not believing because they need to see them being implemented? When it comes to corruption and cracking down on corruption, what are you expecting to see in President William Ruto's promised government shakeup?
One of the things that is Gen Z's, why they have the hashtag Ruto must go, is they believe they need to uproot the whole system in order for them to cover all pilferages of tax leakages and, you know, like, and corruption and what have you. Firing of Ruto's cabinet, some of his cabinets, that I feel like, you know, we don't appreciate how much it takes for one to become president. I mean, if Kasmil right now was to become president and to overthrow this regime, he would have a lot of political favors that he owes people. And that is why I think he had such a poor cabinet, is I feel like he, and I say this at the expense of maybe sounding propagandist, but he had owed a lot of people political favors. And I feel like probably this is one way for him to have an excuse and say, you know what, now I need to have a meritocratic and accountable government. You guys leave, let me hire people who actually have the experience and the education to do 1, 2, 3 things. That at least will, you know, we'll have people who are actually forward thinking in the cabinet and in the decision-making procedures. But The question now should be, how do we remove cartels? Those are how the leakages go. How should we talk about, we talked about earlier about the conflict of interest bill, how these people should cover all those tax privileges. The fight to end corruption has only just begun. We have only shed light and given people knowledge that this and this is what happens. This is something, and but then let's not, to my Gen Zs, let me not, we are in a generation of instants. You found instant shower, instant coffee, instant heating. We want information, it's instant. Let's not do this at the expense of everything happening at an instant. It does take time. We should appreciate that these things do take time. Okay. But as well as the government should also know that we are watching. We are seriously watching, not just now, but in the days to come until your tenure, until at the government.
We must begin to wind up. Jennifer, let me give you your final comments before I come to Kasmo.
Yeah. So just to add on, I want to say this about our expectation with this cabinet. We are not addressing these people because the government now is falling apart. We've seen our whole cabinet was Linturi supply fake fertilizers. Why would you have someone still in that office, the same person? We do not expect this entire cabinet has failed in all sectors. We want Murkomen home because the 2 years we've given them a chance. What have they done? Okay. So as much as we want to say we need to understand presidency and all that, his people are not working for Kenya, and it's unfortunate that you're giving people jobs because you owe them one. Okay. Instead of if they qualify for the job.
Your comments as we wind up.
First of all, we are occupying the Ministry of Health today. Yes. As Kenyans, we are joining the doctors on the streets to occupy MOH, and it is Afya House and not Afya Center. And we will do this regardless of whatever the president said, regardless of them saying, because if you look into the nitty-gritty of them saying that they are going to pay the doctors or the medical interns, they do not intend to post all of them. We look into the JSS teachers, which is a very sad situation, that the parliamentarians are getting airtime allowance that is higher than their basic salary. We are saying that all these things we will sort out as a Kenyan citizenry. But we are also saying that when we say Ruto must go, let not anyone in the alleged opposition think that that does not include them. When we say Ruto must go, we say that all forms of bad governance, whether they come from the Azimio One Kenya coalition or the Kenya Kwanza government or the independent parliamentary of senator, we are saying that all sorts of bad governance must go.
All right, let's wind it up there. Many thanks. That is Kasmo Makore, who is an activist and one of the frontliners in this Gen Z movement. We also have Josephine Onjiru, who is a youth and gender advocate, as well as Jennifer Mbogo, who is a Gen Z and social justice enthusiast. Many thanks for being with us here on New Dawn, and thank you for watching and engaging us. So much feedback that we do not have time to read at this moment, but do keep the conversation going. The hashtag is New Dawn. My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo. Good morning.
Of emotions, relationships,